Hello and welcome to another edition of the Knicks Film School pregame show. My name is Andrew Claudio, aka GMAC, and it's time to preview the Knicks' upcoming matchup on Monday night against the Detroit Pistons, fresh off their win against little brother, the Brooklyn Nets, on Saturday, a matinee that broke the KFS curse. Thank you sincerely. If you didn't hear us say it at the end of the most recent episode of the Knicks Film School weekly recap with John and Jeremy, with that episode, just from me personally, thank you to everybody that joined us at T Squared Social in the city on Saturday. We hope that the next event will now make it a winning streak. It's no longer a KFS curse. It's a KFS streak of good luck. As far as the Knicks in general are concerned, they have won 5 of their last 6 and will look to make it 6 of their last 7 when they play the Pistons, who come in at 12-59, potentially a little banged up, potentially playing out the string by resting some of their key players. I'm not sure what to expect from this Pistons team. I know we come into these games against opponents that the Knicks are better than with an amount of PTSD. You know, as you saw John hesitate and go to 2-2 on his weekly predictions this week. There's always in the back of our mind a letdown game on the way. Well, let's see if this will be that letdown game. Joining me to talk about this matchup against the Detroit Pistons, a returning guest from Motor City Hoops, Mr. Bryce Simon. Bryce, how are you, my friend?
What's up, Andrew? How are you doing? I don't mean to bury the lead or the content or whatever the saying is. I don't think your Knicks and your fans have a whole lot to worry about on Monday night. I'm pretty sure I said that the last time I was on here. But I mean, I don't know who's going to play on Monday, but not very many guys played on Sunday for the Pistons.
Mm-hmm. And we'll talk about what version of the Pistons we see on Sunday, because this is the second night of a back-to-back. The Pistons were at home against New Orleans. They lost 114-101. But you said the last time you were here that the Knicks have nothing to worry about, right? The Knicks are better. They should win this game. And the Pistons were in the midst of like a historic losing streak.
Yes.
Your co-host, Amari, he also told me that, like, yeah, the Pistons aren't that good. Like, you should handle the next game that the Knicks play against them. Can I just tell you how the last 2 Pistons games have gone? Because I'm sure you know this. The first time, that was a close game in the fourth quarter where the Pistons were leading it at one point. And I was like, oh, are we going to be the team that breaks the streak? Because I did not want to be the team that breaks the streak. Yep. Then, my goodness, the second time that these two teams played after the All-Star break, the game that was originally in Detroit that got moved to Madison Square Garden, Quentin Grimes had the fourth quarter of his life, hit a go-ahead bucket, and what looked like a game-ending turnover by Donte DiVincenzo turned into a game-saving tackle by Donte DiVincenzo, which led to an and one from Josh Hart and a Knick victory. So I'm not going into this thinking, you know, they're going to be lying down for us. I am taking the Pistons as seriously as I can. But as our Pistons expert today, how seriously should I actually take the Pistons? When I say that, I mean, like, what version of this team is going to show up? Like, Cade not playing today, does that mean he's not playing tomorrow? Quentin Grimes hasn't played in a couple games. Is he not playing tomorrow back at the Garden? Like, what version of the team might Knicks fans expect on Monday night?
Yeah, let me pull up the roster here and just go through it real quick. And so Fournier has been playing. He'll play. Wiseman has been starting. Cade, I don't know. Cade's is like knee management type of thing. My theory is this team is going to rest the next couple of games where they play at New York and at Minnesota. And then they finish the season with the Wizards, the Grizzlies, the Hawks, the Grizzlies, the Nets, Sixers, Bulls, Mavericks, tough stretch there, and then the Spurs. So my point is, I wonder if they're like resting up some of these guys actually for a stretch run of like finishing off the season with some wins. Because to me, it makes no sense to tank in this draft. That's a whole nother conversation. Asar Thompson is out, unfortunate blood clot issue. I think everything's okay, like big picture wise, but not playing the rest of the year. Jaden Ivey will play. Isaiah Stewart won't. Doesn't sound like Jalen Duren. They started Troy Brown Jr. on Sunday. Fontecchio hasn't been playing. I doubt you see Quentin Grimes. Like, I mean, that's what you're getting. They started, Andrew, Marcus Sasser, a rookie, Jaden Ivey, who got beat up in a little bit in this game on Sunday, Troy Brown Jr., Metu, and James Wiseman. That was the starting 5 on Sunday for the Pistons.
The Knicks should win this game. Like, I want to be clear. The Knicks should win this game. they should comfortably win this game. In all honesty, they should have comfortably won the last 2 games is all I'm saying. That I am going in with the base level of, they were looking to end the streak the first time and not continue the history that they were headed toward, right? The second time, there was some revenge on the minds of Evan Fournier and Malachi Flynn and Quentin Grimes. So I understood there was some extra oomph. And now after the way the last game ended, I just wouldn't be surprised if this is the game Fournier decides he's going to revert back to record-breaking Fournier.
Well, he's due, Andrew, because he had a good game like 4 or 5 games ago, and then he's played awful since like the last 4 or 5 games. But like, here's another thing, like real quick. All 3 two-way guys played in this game on Sunday. Buddy Boeheim, one of the two-way guys, was one of the leading scorers. Like there was 3 guys around 15, 16, 17 points, something like that. The other was Malachi Flynn. So like the Buddy Boeheim and a two-way guy and Malachi Flynn, who Knicks fans are a little bit familiar with, were 2 of the 3 leading scorers in this game on Sunday.
I'm staring at this now. Evil Dante had 17 points on 12 shots. 17, 4, and 4 for Malachi Flynn.
Yeah.
Okay. It'll be interesting to see what version of the Pistons comes out and how well they play against the Knicks. As far as the general field, I mean, look, you just said it, that this isn't a draft to be tanking in. That's the sentiment I get from every single draft expert that I talk to. And I know you fancy yourself as well as a bit of a draft expert. So as someone covering a team that's going to have a chance at the top pick in the draft, like the vibes in Detroit at the moment, when you're going to have a top 3 odds or top 5 odds potentially, and this isn't the draft to have top 5 odds. If you could give me a temperature check of the fan base, that like, man, what was this season for? Like, how are they feeling?
Not great.
Not great.
Real quick, the only way this is a game on Monday is if Cade and Jalen Duren both play, which like they're listed as day-to-day on the official injury report. So there's a chance they play. So just to put a bow on
cover your bases. Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay. To put a bow on that, there's a chance those 2 guys could play. And if those 2 guys play, there's a chance. Man, it's been a season, Andrew. Like they've tied the record for the Detroit Pistons have played 30 players this season. 30 different players have played in a game. Now, some of that is because these trades, they made a lot of them. Those guys actually played some minutes before getting waived or moved on or whatever. But like, I want to say we've learned some things, but I don't even know exactly what we've learned about some of the players. I feel like what I've learned about Cade Cunningham a little bit. I'm actually more confident in him, or as confident. I don't know how people from the outside feel, but yeah, I think there's a lot of angst, Andrew, because this team is going to have a ton of cap space. They're going to have a top 5 pick. There is a path to this team being better in 24, 25, but I don't think the fan base has any trust in the front office, ownership, etc., that path gets taken and it ends up being what happens.
So that cap space you talk about.
Yep.
Bryce. So just gonna throw 2 names out there that maybe a team I root for, they employ these players, and we're worried, just back of our mind, worried that a team like the Pistons and their cap space could throw a crazy number at. Have you heard the name Isaiah Hartenstein or maybe OG Anunoby get thrown around Piston circles? I mean, those could be some targets.
Yeah, I mean, like OG is like the ideal guy for the Pistons, right? Somebody like that. We don't talk about him because, like, in my opinion, that thing's done. Like, there's no way the Knicks made that deal if they don't know that it's done.
Just to jump in, I agree. Okay. I just know that there is a sentiment from Knicks fans that, like, the disaster. The doomsday scenario is you traded quickly. You traded RJ. You got, basically half a season or 20 games of Anunoby. He walks for like a ridiculous offer. I know what agency represents him. I know what agency runs the Knicks. So I'm less concerned about it. Yeah. But I wanted to know if like that is a target that you've heard like Pistons fans be like, hey, let's go steal Anunoby from the Knicks.
I mean, I think it'd be one everybody would be supportive of. I think the issue is like, I just don't think anybody believes that. Now, to your point, they have the number, like the cap space to throw something silly. Hartenstein is more interesting. I love Hartenstein. I would be surprised if he's back as a Knick just because my hope is for him. And listen, I'm a big fan of the Knicks. Like over on Game Theory, we have bragged about your team and your organization and the moves they've made and the guys we like and Jalen Brunson and all of this stuff. But I just think it's time for I would like to see Hartenstein get valued, get paid, get a role that I think he deserves. And part of this is I believe in Mitchell Robinson. I think he's really good as long as he's going to be healthy. I mean, if you bring Hartenstein back and those are your big man rotation again next season, that's pretty special. But the weird thing in Detroit is he's going to come to Detroit to play as the backup 5 because they're kind of locked into Jalen Duren unless they trade him, and you're not going to do that to sign Hartenstein. And in my opinion, Isaiah Stewart should be a backup 5 more than a starting 4 or something like that. So while I love the player, I don't know that he's at the top of my list of guys I want to see the Pistons bring. There are issues at the wing and forward. That's where they have major issues at the 3 and 4.
So to your point about Hartenstein getting paid and going someplace else, so the Knicks that they can offer him $16 million now over as a first year salary, and that's you could base the contract off of that. I think the thing, so Bobby Marks came on our show during the trade deadline week, and he and our honestly his identical twin Jeremy Cohen, who is one of the KFS co-hosts here, they've put out the great point that fine, a team might go throw a bag at Hartenstein. Who's the team? Because if it's not the Pistons who have the cap space, I don't think he's going to want to go back up Wemby in San Antonio, another team with cap space. Toronto does have cap space, but again, they just signed Kelly Olynyk. Are they now committed to a legitimate stretch 5? Which has honestly worked wonders for their spacing, and with RJ Barrett is feasted with just the paint being wide open. So you got to show me the team that's going to throw a $20 million, even an $18 million offer that's going to force him to leave New York, where I got to be honest, he's kind of the starting center at this point. He's kind of won that job.
I mean, that's the thing. If you can promise him, quote unquote, the playing time and he's happy, these are the things that I'm not an insider, so I don't know, but I think we always have to take into account. Is he happy? What does Isaiah Hartenstein want? The other thing else, this is a good point, because I say, why I would like him to get paid and those type of things. It's also a draft with some really interesting centers where teams may go, I can just go draft Donovan Clingan. I can go draft Zach Edey, Deron Holmes, multiple bigs in this class, and they can come in and be my second unit center, and I can have them on a cost-controlled rookie deal for 5 years, as opposed to paying Isaiah Hartenstein whatever number, you guys talked about. So maybe this market plays out in the Knicks' favor where they can keep that, that duo of Mitch Rob and Hartenstein.
I do also wonder the fact that he's played with this Achilles injury for the last the last month or so. I don't want to say he's a part-time player, because it's not I do think he could play 30 minutes a game. I do think there is something to the fact that he started playing 40 minutes, and maybe that's just too many to play a center anyway. He kind of needs to split the minutes with Mitch. Some nights he's playing 30, some nights he's playing 20. They're together going to play the 48 minutes, which is, it was a dynamic duo last year. And this year we saw what the peak version of both looks like. So, potentially we'll see. I don't know how this became an Isaiah Hartenstein pod, but I love that it did, because he's a fascinating player and he's been really good this season.
I've been a huge fan. And I mean, honestly, I was glad we got into it a little bit, because we're not going to have time to do it. Maybe you'll bring me back on down the road when you
draft day. Draft class. Trust me, I've already put your name on Chris's radar. Believe me.
I was looking at where you guys would have picks. And again, those big guys that I just said, if Hartenstein leaves, I think there's some interesting names for you guys in the draft with those names. So that's a pod down the road. You guys have playoffs to talk. We're doing NBA draft stuff in the Pistons world. You guys have seeding and all of that stuff to talk about.
Listen, been there. Believe me, I'm just glad the Knicks are going to have a pick in this year's draft. I understand what the draft is this year. Maybe this isn't the draft to have 2 picks in the 20s, but they're able to find value with Quentin Grimes, who's now in Detroit. They were able to find my goodness, the value they've found with Deuce McBride and what he's become, especially this last week where he's just been outstanding.
Awesome.
that was an early second round pick that they traded down twice to eventually take. So we'll see when we'll circle back and get you on again when it comes to draft season. As far as the Pistons Knicks trade, because this is the first time that I've had the chance to talk to you on a podcast since our two teams made a trade in February. So the day the trade got made, were you surprised that Bogey and Burks were traded without a first round pick coming back? And are you okay? It's a two-part question. Are you okay with basically Quentin Grimes is the return package for both of those players?
I would say yes. So whenever that trade was first announced, I think Bogey wasn't a part of it. And so it was like Grimes in 2 seconds for Burks. And so as Pistons fans, we're going like, oh my gosh, Troy Weaver fleeced the New York Knicks. Like,
still, yeah, we had the same thought, and then we noticed the Fournier was going. I was like, oh, the money doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So it's like, wait, how did he do this? This is awesome. Like he's learned all of his lessons, and now he, and then Bogey gets thrown into it, and it's like almost you go the other way of like, dang, Bogey and Burks. So the more I thought about it, it's exactly what you said. To me, Alec Burks for 2 second round picks makes sense. Bogey for Grimes. Would I rather have a first round pick? Would I, a lot of Pistons fans want the Pistons pick back, the Knicks own. So that's what everybody wanted. I think I would guess most people would want that. I can't put it out as a poll right now because Quentin Grimes has been so bad making shots with Detroit since the trade and has been injured that everybody's going to say they would rather have the pick than Quentin Grimes. I think I'm okay with it. But I'm like, I need you to talk me into Quentin Grimes because I was into Quentin Grimes until I've seen what I've seen with the Pistons so far. And so now I'm starting to get a little nervous. Can you talk me into Quentin Grimes?
So 2 things. First of all, shout out to one of our long staples in the Patreon, as well as the Discord, as well as our post-game super chats. His name is Busy. He got on my case because I said that Quentin Grimes had been playing poorly because the number I had at a while ago, I don't know if it's changed, which is what I'm looking up now, was that he was 4 of 22 from 3. Yeah. And it was like he had one good quarter against the Knicks, and that was it with the Pistons. Excuse me. Now it's 4 of 28 from 3. But I actually think that was the number when it happened, and he's hurt. The 2.62 effective field goal percentage is like a shout out to Mensa. He would make this joke. That's a high school or a public school in Brooklyn, not a good effective field goal percentage. I think so you tell me. I did look up some of the deeper like contextual stats, and what's the most alarming is like wide open threes. He's 1 of 15. And that I think is usually a good indicator of like, okay, contested threes, where like is he just chucking? Is he facing certain defenses a certain way? No, wide open threes tell me a lot about whether you're just missing shots or not. And the fact that he's just missing shots is scary. So just like how they've used him. Is it a lot of catch and shoot? Is there any pull up involved? Like how have they used him? Is it mostly just as a floor spacer?
Okay, so I'll give you the context of what I've seen, and then maybe you can help me, put it all together. I see a guy who has gotten really good wide open catch and shoot shots and just hasn't made them. I think it looks good. He just hasn't made them. He's got some pull up, and he's tried to do a little bit off the bounce. Like they've given him some freedom off the bounce. Honestly, I think he's tried to do a little bit more than what I would like to see, but he plays in a second unit without a real creator around him. So like, he's forced to do it a little bit, but he has missed a lot of shots where I'm like, that's what you are here to do is make those shots. And then defensively, I think he's been good with some very impactful moments, but maybe not quite as impactful as what I was hoping. So like, that's what has he actually played 9 games or something like that? How many ever games it is, view of Quentin Grimes with fairly to him in and out of the lineup. Andrew, like, he'll play, then he'll be out a couple games and all of that.
I think the consistency for one would be my first alarm to sound like, hey, like it's still early. Like I'm looking at it 6 games, but it's a bad 6 games. But well, it's a bad 5 games in 3 quarters. That 4th quarter against the Knicks, where he almost single-handedly beat them at the Garden, was we thought we were going to be part of a Disney movie that night. It's like, oh, okay, so this is a Quentin Grimes game. he went through these stretches at times in New York, but it always reverted back to the mean the other way. And like somehow he's like just gonna come back. It's like, oh, he's 5 of 11 from 5 of 8 or 5 of 9 from 3 this game. He's made 12 of his last 20 from 3, and then he ended up somehow shooting 38% from 3 overall. The shooting, I'm just flat out not worried about him. His role in New York went from the starting 2 to the backup unit. Then when after the Knicks made their trade for Anunoby, then he got was supposed to get more playing time. And then I thought Tibbs kind of mismanaged his minutes. I also thought he was playing somewhat poorly. And then there were certain lineups where I thought he could have played more that he wasn't. And Tibbs was playing like, all right, Josh Hart and Anunoby just have to play 40 minutes no matter what. There's some behind the scenes stuff in the locker room where he just like was not a fan of how clicky the Knicks locker room could be at times. That may have affected his performance. I will say he never dogged it. And I do think, like, to your point about his defense, the impactful stuff, like his screen navigation, I think is his best. I think his on-ball defense is okay. What's tough for, better than okay, it's good. The tough part is that he's 6'5". If he was 6'8", we're talking about like you're going to treat him like OG Anunoby. Like you're like, oh, you're this impactful, but you're 6'5", so we don't know who you're able to. We're just able to throw you on anybody. It's really like smaller guards and 2 guards that you're going to succeed the most against. I watched him play some pretty good playoff defense. I watched him be their main point of attack defender for a lot of last season and be very good. The sprained knee that he was coming back from this year, as well as the change in so much of his routine this year. I have to think this year is a bit of a wash. I would be motivated about a year 4 Quentin Grimes coming onto your team next year with something to prove, with a contract to play for. Yeah, that's a guy you look up and it's like, oh, it's the All-Star break and he's shooting 41% from 3. You know, and he's like one of the better defenders in the league too.
So that's what, if there's any confidence in this front office, Troy Weaver, whatever, going into the offseason, it's that at the trade deadline, he brought in guys that made sense. So like how you just explained Quentin Grimes is exactly what this team needs, whether it's, you know, some people like maybe it's next to Cade Cunningham because Jaden Ivey has seemed to fall out of favor with some Pistons fans, you know, Simone Fontecchio from the Jazz. Like, you know, this is a guy I assume the Knicks won't see, but has played extremely well. So if Knicks fans aren't familiar with him,
we saw him in Utah. We're aware of his game. Yeah.
So he was playing well there. He's come to Detroit and played even better. He's a bigger player who's not as like lockdown defender, but because of his size, contrary to Quentin Grimes, he can take some of those matchups and hold up okay. And then he has shot the ball extremely well. So that's kind of where I'm at with Grimes in terms of, I don't want to grade this trade until we see, you know, if Grimes shoots 25% from 3 next year and only plays 47 games because this is a lingering knee issue and some of those things, then yeah, it's probably a loss of a trade. Like then it wasn't the right trade. The thing that is surprising to me is like, I check Knicks box scores every night. Well, I check every box score, not just Knicks. I wonder if Knicks fans are like, what did we do here? Because are Knicks fans unhappy with the return right now?
I'm going to completely counter your chance that because what you just said was that if Grimes plays poorly next year, you lost the trade, right? Like the Pistons lost the trade.
Yeah.
I'm going to officially declare there's no way you can lose this trade. It's either a wash or you won the trade.
It's that bad.
Okay. So Bogey's had moments. Like he hit 6 threes against Philly out of the break. That helped them win a game. There's a game against the Cavs. I don't know if you saw the nationally televised game on Sunday night where Jalen Brunson played 30 seconds and got hurt. And we thought like, oh, the season's over. Got it. Okay. I'll start making plans for May now. And then obviously he came back. But like that night, Bogey hit 5 threes. And it was like, okay, you've contributed to 2 wins. There was a game on this West Coast trip where guess what? Not 1, but 2 Pistons contributed in the 4th quarter. And it was like, oh, we're actually getting productive Burks and Bogey minutes. I'll take it. And that was good. Outside of that, they've been awful, dude. Like it's so bad. Bogey, like he's finishing at the rim poorly. He's not really getting past anybody and everybody's getting past him. his shooting like comes and goes, where like he'll get catch and shoot opportunities and creation opportunities, and I'm at the point with Bogey where I'm confident that eventually he'll regress back to what his career numbers are. But man, just it's very much a 6'8" Fournier is what we've seen from him so far. But like the version that got benched, he only played 7 minutes against Brooklyn on Saturday, and I wonder if Tibbs is starting to feel the end of his leash. The Alec Burks experience in New York, my goodness, he doesn't pass the ball. Like Bryce, he just does not pass the ball. We have a drinking game going on right now. We drink when he passes the ball. We're very sober the moment. Okay. It's like we had a watch party the other day in the city, New York City, and there's a possession where he got the ball with 36 seconds left in the third quarter, and he got it just before, like off of a rebound. Someone passed it to him, and he brought the ball up the court. Someone came over to set a screen. Like Dennis Smith Jr. was hounding him, like, oh, they should probably run a play here, and we're all yelling collectively. Everybody, the Knicks Film School faithful. Pass the ball. Bryce, he took a contested 2 with Day'Ron Sharp in his face. Like it's very much been, you know why I'm here. Like, I'm not here to pass the ball. I'm here to get buckets. And if I'm going to get, maybe sometimes I'll get buckets, maybe sometimes I won't. And for the majority, he has not gotten buckets. I'll obviously be shocked if Alec Burks is on this team next year. I think Bogey is destined to be salary filler unless some regression happens for both of them.
Yep.
The conversation has become, will they be in the playoff rotation if we're healthy? That's how bad they've been in New York.
That's crazy. And I mean, I guess it does. It's weird as a Pistons fan to watch this because, Bogey was like their second best player, third, whatever, leading scorer whenever Cade wasn't playing. I wonder for Bogey if it's a figuring out this role, because he has played in this role offensively in Detroit where he was kind of the number one scoring option. Even with Cade at times, they ran plays for him and he was, got a ton of shots. And then now he's coming off the bench and that's not necessarily a thing. Burks, I could see the same thing. Burks came in with the second unit. And it was just his, like, you go get buckets, Alec Burks. That's all that matters. I think especially with Bogey, I think what I thought would happen is he'd go to the Knicks, especially with the culture you guys have, and we would see him play better defense. Like, I just assumed the defense was bad in Detroit because the Detroit Pistons suck and he didn't care that much. And when he went to a playoff contender, we would see like the energy ramp up. And it sounds like maybe he's at the age where like there is no ramp up defensively.
That's the thing. I want to be clear. It's not an effort thing. I actually do. There are a lot of plays that you'll see. Oh, he got in front of someone like on this possession. He is absolutely trying. It's an ability thing at this point in his career, in my personal opinion. Look, I'm a overweight podcaster in Queens. Like, I'm not gonna completely torch an NBA player for their effort, for their abilities at this point in their career, an accomplished career. I will just say the Knicks have better options, and this rise of Deuce McBride that has suddenly shown up, and obviously with Anunoby potentially coming back. Yeah, I think we kind of got a glimpse of it. The first game that Anunoby played after his surgery was a game against the Sixers, and Burks played like 5-6 minutes and Bogey played about 13 minutes. They played the lowest amount of minutes in the rotation that night, and I wonder if that's what we're headed for until once Anunoby comes back, once Mitchell Robinson comes back, and then just go with, if Randall comes back, it's an 8-man rotation and both Pistons are on the bench.
So that's what people see me like staring up to the sky. I was counting numbers because if you're healthy, it's Brunson, Dante, OG, Randall, Mitch Rob, and then Deuce he's staying in the rotation based off the way he's played. Yeah. Josh Hart and Hartenstein, and that's it, right? Like, I mean, that's
swap Hartenstein for Mitch, and then that's.
You think Hartenstein will stay in the starting lineup and Mitch would come off the?
They've already acknowledged it. Okay. Wait. Now I think they'll stagger it a little better.
Sure.
Like, I don't think what's happened through this minutes restriction that Hartenstein's on. It's not that he isn't allowed to play a certain number of minutes in the game. It's the consecutive minutes. He's not allowed to play full quarters anymore. So it's like 7 to 8 minutes at a time, which is why you can stagger and be like, okay, you play the first 7 minutes of the game. Mitch comes in for the next 7. Then Hartenstein plays with the second unit. Mitch can close with the starters. And Hartenstein does the exact same thing in the second half, except he can close the game, or we'll just see who has the hot hand at the center position. Like if they get both of them back with any semblance of health, and I'm assuming Mitch also has a bit of a minutes restriction.
Yeah.
You know, then that's your path for a playoff rotation. But yeah, I'm at the point with I'd be shocked the way, especially like Tibbs is never going to tell you in a post game, like, yes, I'm going to bench both Bojan and Alec Burks. I'm just following what he's doing. And as of right now, like Bogey played 7 minutes against Brooklyn on Saturday. So if it continues this week, then that may happen. Now, I'm not like closing the door on like, oh, both of them had like a combined 40 points tonight and they both hit their threes for a week and regression is a thing. Like I'm not closing the door on that. It's just getting late very early.
Mitch Rob's gonna just destroy people. Second units, like second unit big men.
Second unit running the possession battle contest. Yeah, absolutely.
They are gonna get destroyed. What I'm looking up now is I want to see if Fournier has played more minutes. What is Fournier playing with the Pistons?
I'm almost positive that he has this year. I'm almost positive he has. He's only played like 4 games.
Well, no, I was thinking compared to. Oh, they have so many players played. There's 2 lines here.
You're not wrong.
Where is Fournier?
What's your thought?
I was trying to see if he was playing more minutes per game than Bogey, and he's not quite. So Fournier has played 18 games at 18.1 minutes, and Bogey has played 17 games at 21 minutes. Alec Burks, on the other hand, has played 18 games at just under 15 minutes. So that's what I was like. Fournier has played more minutes per game with Detroit than Alec Burks has with the Knicks. So interesting.
And look, it sounded like Fournier just like wanted to go to a place to play.
Yeah.
And like, God bless him. I was actually kind of annoyed the night that Knicks fans booed him. I didn't understand it. Guy broke records in New York his first year here, and then he played poorly, and they benched him. And he was a professional for the rest of the season. Like it was tenure as a Knick. So I'm happy he's playing. I'd like him kicking the ball into the stands after the loss to the Heat was one of the funniest moments of the season. So
I didn't even blame him either. Like I wanted to kick the ball into the stands. I just don't have the money to do it. Like he has the money, he can do it. The one nice thing about that trade for the Knicks is, like you said with Bogey, you can still have that same salary filler, right? Like people are already talking about this because Fournier's club option, is that right?
It's a team option. So if you'd have to pick up his team option for a year, which I forget if that includes a no trade clause if you do that, but the point is you're opting into another year of him rather than with the Knicks. Like they just have Bogey under contract for a year, so they can have their cake and hopefully get a productive rotation piece, and then eat it too when they try to potentially upgrade that spot in the offseason.
Exactly. You know? So they kept that salary filler, or if they don't feel like they need that salary matching for whatever reason, whatever path, then they can still get out of the Bogey contract in the same way they could have with Fournier, with $2 million on the books, because it is $2 million guaranteed for Bogey. But I mean, I just thought it was really smart in terms of they kind of kept that salary slot with Bogey, ideally getting more production, which at the end of the day, they still are, right? Because Fournier wasn't going to play and Bogey at least has, but you still have that salary slot or the option to get out of that salary slot if you don't want it. So,
yeah, I haven't even thought about next season, but to your point, like if there's a world where they don't make anything significant this offseason, they don't do anything that radical. Like, okay, bring Randall back. Bogey's your backup for a while. You know, in that sense, to just kind of run it back and wait for it to become a buyer's market. Now, my projection is that it's going to become a buyer's market this offseason. I don't know if that means Joel Embiid, but I think some other teams with guys do pretty big contracts are going to become are going to look to make those guys available, and that's potentially where the Knicks get involved. So we'll see. And look, the Pistons in their cap space, maybe they look to significantly upgrade.
That's what everybody. Pistons' biggest thing, fans, is like, there's no good free agents. I'm like, you're not wrong. Like, because even if Paul George becomes a free agent, he's not coming to Detroit. So what are we going to do with this $65 million in cap space or whatever it ends up being? And it's like, it's got to be a trade. Like the hope is there's some team out there that's looking for some cap flexibility to get under whichever luxury, whichever apron, and you can get a quality player for a little bit less than you would have otherwise, because the Pistons wouldn't have to send back matching salary or whatever it is. So it'll be interesting. I know Keith Smith over at the front office show, him and Trevor Lane, they call it the summer of the trade. Like, they are adamant that we're going to see a bunch of trades this summer. So it could be a fun offseason.
Pardon my ignorance here, but I'm just like unaware of the Detroit history of free agents. Like, are they a good free agent destination? Are they a bad free agent destination? Like, I know that doesn't necessarily matter in free agency this offseason, but like, we'd be lying if we didn't say that a player's going to have to approve a trade to Detroit if that's on the table,
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, it's not considered a destination where you're going to get, you're going to get somebody to choose Detroit over anybody else. Like, I think we all feel like they would have to overpay to get somebody to come to Detroit, which they have the cap space to do. But when you overpay for somebody, obviously there's more risk that goes along with that. And so, like Jeremy Grant's a guy that I think Pistons fans are always like, hey, he chose us, but at the end of the day, they overpaid him at the time, like what people thought was a major overpay whenever they gave Jeremy Grant that contract. And, it ended up working out good for Detroit. And, then Jeremy went on and got an even bigger payday.
I was going to say, and then he really got overpaid. Yes.
Yes, exactly. So I think that's even if there was a good free agent, is it really Detroit? I think the hope was Cade looked so good and Jaden, these young guys looked so good that it would be enticing for somebody to come play with them. And it just hasn't been the case thus far. We can't get into the nuances of all those guys, but it definitely hasn't stood out in such a positive way where some free agents can be like, yes, let me go join forces with that young core and we can really, take off.
If you had to give the elevator pitch on the nuances, maybe not of everybody in detail, right? But like what necessarily hasn't worked with Cade or Jaden Ivey or Duren? Because that's like from a prospect standpoint, that's like a solid. And I even mentioned Thompson. Like, those are 4 pieces that I could see being part of a winning team's rotation in the future.
The biggest argument is none of them can shoot. Like, Jalen Duren absolutely does not shoot. Asar Thompson shoots under 20% from 3, and Jaden Ivey is a 33% 3-point shooter that is about as up and down as sporadic as you can get. And while Cade has been better this year, it's still not great. So I think the biggest thing is they don't fit together. Some people don't even believe that Cade and Jaden can play together. Now, I'm very bullish on this. I think Jaden Ivey's really, really good, and I think they can. There's also questions like, how good are each of them individually defensively? Asar Thompson is tremendous. Cade is okay, depending on the night. Jaden has gotten better, but still isn't great. And the one you really need to be great, which is Jalen Duren, to anchor your defense, it's probably the weakest part of his game right now. And so it's like, there's things to get excited about each of them individually. And there's even other names on the roster that are easy to get excited about, but it still just doesn't have a bunch of chemistry and flow together. And at some point, I think they're going to have to make decisions to make that happen.
You know how infuriating it is to hear you say that their issues are shooting. And in the 2 meetings against the Knicks this year, the Pistons shot 42.9% from 3 and 46.7% from 3. So I look forward to tomorrow where they shoot 50% from 3 on like 50 attempts.
Well, if it is, it's Fournier and Malachi Flynn and
former Knicks. Exactly. Yeah.
You better guard Buddy Boeheim, Andrew, because if there's one thing that kid can do, it's shoot threes.
There you go. And that is, to your point, the formula of getting Grimes, getting Fontecchio.
Yes.
Extent Fournier. I've no idea what his future. I mean, you tell me, is there a thought that like this is more than just a 1-year thing?
I would assume not, but
Okay.
I mean,
I would assume not either, but you do have two young controllable pieces, that one of which I'm very high in on Quentin Grimes. One I think is like a good piece in Fontecchio.
yes.
They can help space the floor, and if you stagger correctly, they could actually contribute. So look, I think the Orlando, what they've done this year,
Yes.
I mean, there's no Franz. Like maybe Ivy can take a leap next year, but they're the blueprint for like a young team taking a leap. Maybe not like contending for the 3 seed should be the goal. Maybe just like the play-in for starters, and then maybe like the 6 seed. But that I think would be the leap that Detroit would have to strive for next season. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. And I mean, I think some people would tell you they're just ready for them to take the Houston Rockets approach, right? Like go overspend on some vets that come in and like bring some stability to the team, because then you can really find out what you have in these young guys. So we're seeing 2 different teams take 2 different paths, and obviously the Magic are a little further, but like the Rockets are surging right now as well. You know, like looks like they're probably going to miss out on the play-in, but they took a step forward this year. And again, if nothing else, I think the Rockets are finding out who their young players are, what they can and cannot do. And I think that's a big issue with Pistons fan is it hasn't been since after the deadline when even just Fontecchio alone, we felt like we got a view of what are strengths and weaknesses of some of these young guys. So my hope for the offseason is they continue to build that floor spacers that can play at least a little bit of defense. Let's see how good Cade Cunningham is or isn't. Let's see how good Jaden Ivey is or isn't. You know, Jalen Duren, can he get better defensively? And then you can start making bigger decisions, hopefully on a way to like a 30-win season. Like if they won 30 games next year and you learn some lessons about your young guys, that's a huge step forward and a huge win for this organization.
I mean, it's almost triple the amount of wins that they'd have. So it's already a significant. I hear you. It's a significant leap. It might not sound like a 50-loss season is a significant leap, but I hear you. And like the tough part about what the Rockets have done over the last 12 games is like, I hear you that's a blueprint, right? If like Ivy or even Cade has a 12-game stretch like what Jalen Green is doing at the moment, then it's like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, we have our Franz, we may even have our Paolo at this point.
Yeah.
We have our Jalen Green. He's looked like I've obviously done a Rockets pregame pod this year, and I was talking to Roosh Williams about, he was comparing Jalen Green's like tenure this year, even like to what RJ was at the end in New York, and he's just suddenly become this like not even the Toronto version of, because like what Toronto RJ's been is like a lot of transition, a lot of like they're taking away all the shots he was bad at in New York that he like was forced to take because he was a redundant piece with Randall, and now they're like playing to his strengths, which is like good player development, right?
Yep.
And what they're doing in Houston is Jalen Green's just like, I'm Dwayne Wade for the last 12 games, but like an efficient 3-point shooting Dwayne Wade. So maybe it's more like a 6'4" Kevin Durant. Like his numbers are insane at the moment. Yeah. So that's the leap you'd have to hope one of your guys take. I hear you though, like go sign 2 vets, try to win 35 games. That's a step forward as an organization, especially for your head coach, who I know has taken a lot of beatings this year. From your vantage point, how deservedly so were the criticisms publicly for Monty Williams?
On a scale of 1 to 10, 6.5, 7, like I think some of it went too far. Like people want him fired right now. Like this is over, get rid of him. He's no good. Like I think that's too far. Like this roster was a nightmare for a large part of the season. Now, some of that's his own doing. Like he's refusing to play Jaden Ivey. And like, there was a really weird quote where like, it was almost like he didn't know who Jaden Ivey was as a player till 40 games into the season. It's like, there was just some stuff with rotations that some of it's just like personal preference that I don't agree with. Like, I don't think you always have to play a 10-man rotation. I don't think that's a thing. I think staggering Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey, your 2 best on-ball guys, is a good idea. And he seems to disagree with that philosophy, and he just doesn't do it. So like, he's an NBA coach and I'm not. Like, I'm recording in my 4-year-old's bedroom right now. So who am I to judge these things, But I wouldn't fight. Like, I'm not calling for his head right now. I haven't agreed with everything. I think some stuff has been decent. I think he runs some good sets after timeouts and those type of things. I think the defense has gotten better throughout the year in some ways. It should be noted they brought in Dan Burke to be their defensive guy as an assistant coach. And we don't know exactly what, but he essentially coached like 3 games and then left the team with personal reasons. And so like, I'm sure that took a huge hit to the defensive infrastructure. So I'm willing to give it another year, like a whole entire year, with ideally a roster that makes sense, and ideally a roster that Troy Weaver puts together that Monty wants, because at the end of the day, he's the one coaching the team. So I think Troy needs to put guys together that's going to fit whatever Monty's vision is.
First of all, I commend you for the nuanced criticism of your head coach. That look, I struggle with Tibbs probably every day, where there are times where he drives me crazy, but I also recognize he's the best coach they've had since Van Gundy. There are like little quibbles that I go to. There are some philosophical things. I got to be honest though, like his adjusting this year, like going outside of his comfort zone, I think he's been forced to because of the injuries. But like, it's almost like they upgraded their coach, that he's not going to be like a stubborn, like I have to have like size matters more than anything. I have to have like specific lineups in. And it's like, oh, you actually went to Deuce McBride at the 2. Oh, you went to Josh Hart and Anunoby in your starting 5. Oh, you're playing Jalen Brunson next to another small guard. Like, where was this when Manuel Quickley was here? So like him evolving in that way, I actually think is like a step forward. And you hear this, like stories like this all the time. And I'm not sure how big a football fan you are, but the New York Giants former head coach, Tom Coughlin, like a lot was made the year they won that first Super Bowl, that he just came back as a completely different coach in that 4th year. He was like a drill sergeant, and like no one wanted to play for somebody that like was on you like that for as long as possible. Showed up year 4 as a lame duck and was like a grandpa, and was like, very paternal, and took the guys out for bowling during training camp. And it was like, oh, okay, like this is a guy we could like play for and wanna win games for. And we'll see if that relationship starts to grow over time with Monty. I've already kept you longer than I thought we were going to. This is a Pistons team that's playing out the string a bit, and I know you've got to run. Before I let you get out of here, I threw a final 5 at you, and I wonder if the Knicks fall into this. So your top 5 championship contenders for this season, who would they be?
Real quick, I am a football fan, but I'm a Chiefs fan. I'm from Kansas. For those people who don't know, I know Pistons, like it's a whole long story. So Steve Spagnuolo is a guy that you guys would be familiar with. That
yes,
is one
near and dear to Giants fans' hearts here in New York. Yes.
Very good defensive coordinator. Okay. Top 5. So I'm going to
hold on. I'm so happy that you've had to tolerate this Pistons season, but you got to enjoy the Chiefs now. Like that makes me happy.
No.
What?
No.
What?
I'm not taking that. I'm 37 years old. I've been a Chiefs fan since birth. As a Chiefs fan, I deserve what I've got the last 5 years.
I agree. It's the 5 years even. I'm saying the fact that you have had to watch the Pistons, but like it's not just the Pistons. Like you're not also a Lions
I get something
fan.
else right now.
Yeah, like I'm a Mets fan. Like I'm a Jets fan. Like my football season ended 4 plays in, and then my quarterback almost ran for vice president. Like I'm like the Knicks are my Chiefs at this point. So that should give you the context there.
Okay. All right. I think the Celtics are number 1.
I struggle here too. Are they 1 or 2?
Celtics are 1 and 2 with the Nuggets. If I had to put money on it, I would probably still pick the Nuggets. So I guess the Nuggets 1, the Celtics 2, even though like the Celtics, like historically regular season wise, like the fact that they're over 10 games up on number 2 is just crazy. I went through there's only happened like 3 or 4 times in the last 20, 25 years, something like that. I'm going to say the Bucks. I don't feel great about it. I'm going to say the Thunder. even though I have some nervousness about a team that young, I don't know who else to trust in the West. Like, as competitive as the West is, I don't know who I trust there. I can't say the Knicks because I don't know if you guys are healthy.
The health concern, I think, is a fair. Yeah, I'm not going to criticize you for that. I would probably go Clippers here, to be honest.
So that's my fifth team is definitely coming from the West. You know what?
The healthy version of the Knicks I'd put here, but it's the asterisk, the healthy version.
Yeah, and then nobody else in the East falls into this for me. It probably is the Clippers. You know who I want to buy a little bit more than I think other people do is the Timberwolves, and it's because of Anthony Edwards. Like, I just think Anthony Edwards is awesome, and there's part of me that believes like maybe he could just take over a series. But I know what this team looks like, could look like in the playoffs as well. And that doesn't translate. So you have them, you have the Clippers, like they haven't played as well recently. Is that going to come together? The Suns, they still have, a little less than a month for the big three to come together. You're probably right. The Clippers are the answer. So I'll default there. But right now, I feel like maybe I have a tier break after the four that I named, and I know that's lame because it's the top four seeds right now. But I mean, I don't want to say a hot take if I don't believe it. So
I think the four seeds might be where they are, those four teams, because of the tier that they may exist in. And look, there's the healthy version of the Knicks, the healthy version of the Sixers. Maybe
yes,
they were good for a while. We'll see if Embiid comes back. This Cleveland free fall is confusing because they were unbeatable for 2 months, and then I can relate. They just got injured, and I have no idea what to project for them going forward. We'll see. We'll see if we can turn injuries off of the playoffs and actually get a fair version. So, Bryce, I enjoy your basketball insight. I regret that it's on a team that's 12-59 this season, but I look forward to having you back with Chris over for draft talk at the end of the season. Yep. And look, from your lips to God's ears, I hope this isn't a competitive game. I hope I can watch a stress-free game against the Pistons like every other team seems to get to do, and that my team isn't sweating out fourth quarter minutes. But as always, it's great to hear from you. Before you get out of here, please let the fine folks at home know where they can find you and all your stuff.
Yeah, so at Motor City Hoops on Twitter for Pistons, but also I do general NBA more and more and NBA draft. The Pistons Pulse podcast, if you want a Pistons podcast for some reason. But general NBA draft, I'm on Game Theory with Sam Vecini. I think we're actually doing a mock draft maybe on Monday, so Knicks fans could be interested in that. And then on the Basketball Bulletin Substack, which is the aforementioned Keith Smith and Trevor Lane from the Front Office Show, I put out my NBA draft prospect scouting reports and some game notes. So like when I watch a game, I just take loads of notes. It's just my raw notes. It doesn't read like an article. My scouts don't read like an article. It's just raw notes. So you can find that on the Basketball Bulletin Substack. So as always, Andrew, man, I have a blast. It's so much fun.
Absolutely. Good stuff. And everybody you mentioned, friends of the pod. We've had Keith Smith on before.
He's awesome.
Trevor and I have collaborated for a bunch of Lakers pods in the past when the Knicks have played the Lakers. And then the day after the Anunoby trade happened, Mr. Macri from Knicks Film School headed over to Sam's show. Oh, nice. I know Chris is also our draft expert. Chris has had Sam on for draft class, even though the Knicks didn't have a pick last year. So a lot of good people that you obviously are worthy of being associated with. And check out as much of Bryce's content as you can. And thank you for checking out this content, the Knicks Film School pregame show. If you dig the show, please head over to iTunes, drop a 5-star rating and a review. If you're watching also, please like the video. Remember to subscribe. I will be back Wednesday morning with an episode previewing the matchup against the Toronto Raptors. But until then, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Enjoy the game tonight, and I will speak with you soon. Peace.